What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am here with Season 5, Week 4 of the National Pokeball League. This week against my good friend Aberforth, or Palmman, a fellow Token Minority member. I hope you've checked out his content on our channel and on his own. If you haven't, I highly recommend you do so now, because we see a lot of potential in him as a YouTuber and just as a battler in general. So there's a reason why we have him as a member of the Token Minorities, and I highly recommend you go give his channel a look and take a good look at some of the stuff he's posting on our channel, as he is consistently improving as a content creator. But let's just go ahead and jump into the matchup a little bit. So he's a very good player, very good player, and quite honestly, this is one of the battles I was really looking forward to this season, because I actually haven't had an official match against him at any point in my Pokemon career. He was a fellow member of the Fear Clan with me back whenever that was still a thing, but I never played him even once when he was a fellow clan member. And even when he was a coach at the end of last season, I never got the chance to play him. And I played a couple mock battles with him this season just for fun, but you know, those aren't anywhere near like what an official league match is. So I'm really pumped for this opportunity to play against him, because I know how great he is as a player and how zygarde he's improving in the format as well. It's bound to be an amazing match for sure. But let's go ahead and dive into his team a little bit. He has Mega Diancie, Starmie, Raikou, Zygarde, Chestnut, Darmanitan, Sneasel, Rhyperior, Cresselia, Weezing, and regular Aerodactyl. So he's got a lot of speed on his team. That's definitely the strength of his team, and that's his speed. The issue with this team is that he really doesn't have a great defensive core, in my opinion. He has things like Chestnut, Cresselia, and I guess Weezing if you want to count that, but really none of those. Cresselia is pretty darn fat and can survive anything, but the rest of them are pretty easy to take out in the format, because it's not too hard to prep for the 4x weakness on Chestnut, or just Weezing in general, because it really isn't that good in my opinion. Just in general, his team has a lot of holes in its typing, but Caress is a huge problem for my team, so that's really the biggest issue for me overall this week, at least in terms of my own offense, is that Caress can stop a lot of what I have. Caress can stop essentially any Victini that's not a Stall Breaker or a Banded set, and if I bring Banded, it's easily Pursuit trapped by either Sneasel or Aerodactyl, and if I bring a Stall Breaker set, then it's easily Pursuit trapped by an Unnerve Aerodactyl. So I'm pretty reluctant to bring Victini this week to punch a hole in the Cresselia, or even to Stall Break the Cresselia, just because he has those two Pursuit options that are really are a detriment to the offense on my team, the Psychic offense on my team. So just a general thought there. But as additionally, Starmie and Darmanitan are both pretty big threats to my team. Starmie can't really OHKO a whole lot on my team, but it has coverage that can hit everything very hard. The good news is, if he brings Starmie, he probably also has to bring Rapid Spin on it, most likely, and that means he only gets 3 coverage moves, or 2 if he wants recover. I think he's going to have to do 3 coverage moves, so Starmie definitely is neutralized a little bit just due to the variety that my team provides. And then Darm in general just hits my entire team like a truck, so I really only have one switch into Darm, and his name is Salamence, so we're going to have to build around Salamence, I think, and make sure it stays alive to the point where Darm doesn't destroy the rest of my team. So just some initial thoughts there. In general, I'm not too concerned about his speed though, just because I do have a fair amount of priority options, and my fatter Pokemon can really take any hit from his faster things, Starmie being the most heavy hitting of his fast stuff. Mega Diancie hits pretty hard too, but Starmie hits pretty hard as well, but I do have amazing answers to that in Empoleon and Sylveon, and even a Mega Venusaur to an extent if he doesn't run a Psychic move. Just some thoughts, but regardless, between Sylveon and Empoleon, I can take hits from Starmie for days. But in terms of the bigger threats from my team to his, I really don't have the best offensive threats to his team. And that's because he does have the 2 Pursuit Trappers that really do a lot of work against my best offense, being my Psychic offense. And on top of that, I have the Cloyster, which can be pretty good against him as well. Both the Choice Scarf Cloyster could be good because he has the likes of Mega Diancie, which doesn't appreciate Scarf Hydro Pump. He has Darmanitan, doesn't appreciate Scarf Rock Blast. He has Aerodactyl, which definitely doesn't appreciate Scarfed Icicle Spear. Sneasel, Rock Blast. You get the idea. Scarf Cloyster is pretty good against him, but Shell Smash Cloyster is probably even better against him this week, so that's something I also will be adding to my roster as well to see how that works out. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the team builder, and as you can see, I did start off with Salamence. This set is speed creeping a Jolly Darmanitan, just in case he wants to be Jolly Choice Band or Jolly Life Orb against me. I want to make sure I can switch into any form of Darmanitan and wall it. So if it's a Choice Scarf Darmanitan, sure, it'll outspeed me, sure, it can hit me with 2 rock slides, even Sheer Force boosted, but I survive. Unless he crits me, I survive. He can't flinch me, thank God, but because of Sheer Force. But he can definitely land 2 rock slides on me, and I will definitely live unless he crits me with this investment of max defense and, you know, the remainder in HP here. But if he's Bandit or Life Orb, I can easily roost up on the following rock slide and not be 2-hit KO'd by anything. So this is just a pure Darm counter, and as long as rocks are off the field, I'll have to defoggle those away probably whenever they can get on the field. This can switch into Darm without any issues for the entire game. So that's that. This also is a decent switch into the Wheezing as burn fodder, as I really don't have anything that wants to be burned outside of this and perhaps Sylveon. But even so, I can just heal Bell off the burn with Sylveon later on. Not a huge deal. Regardless, this is a nice switch into Wheezing if I have to, and Draco's hurt his team pretty hard. So, and Hydro Pump is there for the Darm switch into Mega Diancie, as Mega Diancie otherwise is a pretty good switch into Immense. I just want to have something to hit that as hard as I can. It's also pretty nice for the Rhyperior in that 4x weakness. So next up we have the Sylveon. This is a pretty standard looking set. EV spread, pretty customized, but then again, not so much. Basically, it's just made such that it can counter Mega Diancie, like a standard Mega Diancie with Diamond Storm and minimal attack investment. It cannot be 2-hit KO'd by minimal attack investment Mega Diancie. That's not saying 0 attack. It can have a little bit of attack and I can still beat it 1v1. This also lets me beat an Analytic Starmie 1v1. Even after taking like a Hydra on the switch, I can almost always, if not always, take another one if need be, including Psyshock. So overall, the defensive spread on this is pretty nice for the matchup, I believe. And Heal Bell to keep my team intact, as I'm running probably the fattest team I'm going to bring all season. And maybe I shouldn't say that. It's a pretty fat team, though. I can definitely go fatter if I really need to, but as you'll see throughout this, almost all of my Pokemon are defensive except for the Cloyster here at the end. So Sylveon's job is to keep the ship floating and to check the likes of the Starmie, the Chestnut, the Zygarde to an extent, Raikou, Mega Diancie, all of these things. That's definitely very helpful against his team, to say the least. So next up is the Empoleon. This is a set that I'm not sure if it'll work. It depends on what Cress he brings. If he brings a Cresselia that does not have Rest or does not have Sub, this will beat Cresselia. Cresselia cannot escape a Whirlpool plus Toxic unless he has Rest or Sub. Considering the mock battles I had, it's pretty likely that he'll have one of those two, unfortunately, but I do have Roar on this as well, just in case he does bring Rest or Sub. But if he doesn't, then he's going to get Whirlpooled and Toxic down, and we will not have to worry about Cresselia. But I felt like I needed something like this on this roster, or on this team rather, to help against Cresselia, because I really, really am weak to Cress. My offensive things are all walled by it. My defensive things it's really hard to get rid of it with my defensive things, especially if it runs Rest. So Cress is just easily the biggest threat to my team defensively, if not also offensively after it gets up those Calm Minds. But yeah, and then Surf also is nice for the Mega Diancie, as Mega Diancie cannot OHKO me with anything. Earth Power barely is a 2-hit KO, if that, so it's pretty good against that. Surf also hits the likes of Aerodactyl. It does a good chunk to Zygarde and Raikou as well as the Darm. So, and Rhyperior, didn't even mention that. I don't think he's going to bring Rhyperior though. But anyways, Empoleon, yeah, pretty good overall in the matchup, and I do have enough defense investment on this to always survive one Scarf Flare Blitz from Darmanitan, I believe, and the rest just in special defense. And then 28 speed EV is just to creep his speed creeps, essentially. And then we have the Piloswine next up. This is more or less a Raikou counter, unless he runs like Specs Aura Sphere, which quite honestly is pretty likely in the matchup, just in general, because Raikou is good against everything else on my team. If it has Aura Sphere, it doesn't even have to be choice specs. If it's like Expert Belt Aura Sphere, then Aura Sphere plus Volt Switch can do a lot of work to my entire team, plus Hidden Power Ice, I guess, as well. So just in general, Piloswine, though, will be a check to the Raikou at least, hopefully also a counter. Just kind of depends on what he actually decides to bring this week. But I do have Earthquake and Ice Shard, which hit most of his team for neutral coverage. I believe it hits everything neutrally. Yeah, it hits hits everything neutrally at the least, but it actually hits a lot for super effective coverage as well, which is pretty nice. And then Stealth Rock for obvious reasons, and Roar to give me an additional check to the Cresselia. I just need to make sure Crest does not get out of hand, and hopefully I can pull out a victory against the Crest late game if I can just set up on it with Cloyster, or set up on something to the point where Crest can't wall me, something like that. And just in general, Roar is nice to have against this team since his hazard removal is pretty poor. Well, it's not poor, I shouldn't say that, but if he brings Starmie as his Rapid Spinner, which is kind of what I anticipate, Starmie's pressured a lot by my team, so I think I'll be able to get rocks up for most of the game, because he's going to want to start attacking with Starmie, and I have a lot of things that can revenge Starmie after they eat up any one hit from it. Kind of the thought process there. Regardless, I think rocks will be at most of the game, and Pilot Swine should be able to do a pretty good job for me this week. Now we have the Mega Venusaur. Again, another fat Pokemon, but I felt like I needed this for the Zygarde. Not an amazing counter to Zygarde, as if he's a Dragon Dance max attack, like Life Orb set, I believe it probably can 2-hit KO me without Rage at +1, but Hidden Power Ice does a chunk to it to the point where it should at least be put into Ice Shard range from the Pilot Swine. That's the general idea there. Leech Seed is there to help me wear down the Crest and the Weezing, and just in general it's good against this team. Hidden Power Ice also is nice for the Chestnut. I also consider to have Hidden Power Flying here, which definitely is something that it could have worked. I just felt it was better to have Hidden Power Ice to also hit the likes of the what's it called? Not the Chestnut, the Zygarde. So yeah, that's that, and then Giga Drain is there for the Mega Diancie, the Starmie, and the Rhyperior, and to do a little bit more damage than Hidden Power Ice would, I believe, to the Aerodactyl. I might be wrong on that. I think Hidden Power Ice might do a little bit more, actually, but yeah, there's that in the Synthesis for recovery, mainly Fizz Def, because most of his team is Fizz Def, and I don't really need to take hits from his special attackers with this, other than perhaps Mega Diancie, but I can eat up a Psychic easily and do a ton with Giga Drain. So finally we have the Cloyster. This is the win con this week, most likely. Well, definitely, it's my only offensive Pokemon on my team, so it's definitely going to be the win con. But this is the Cancerous set with King's Rock, and spoilers, I'm not going to have Cloyster on my team after this week. It's actually going to be traded, as well as several other transactions, which I will outline here in a little bit. I shouldn't say it's going to be traded, it's probably going to be traded. There's a free agency selection that's a little bit dependent on that, but yeah, I guess I'll spoil that next week instead of telling you all about that now. Anyways, this set's pretty good against him overall, especially if I get up a Shell Smash, as his entire team is very, very weak to Cloyster if I have a Shell Smash up. The only things that can outspeed me with a Shell Smash are going to be his fast Pokemon with a Choice Scarf, the most likely one being the Raikou. So the thing on this is that if he brings an R-Sphere Raikou, it has to be Rash Nature, and it also has to be Shiny, so that's something that's worth noting whenever the battle starts. The Raikou has to be Shiny and Rash Nature in order to have R-Sphere. I do think it's going to have R-Sphere though, because R-Sphere is very good against the Pilot Swine, and I think he needs that. So with that said, I don't think Scarf Raikou, I don't know, it's kind of tough. If he brings Scarf Raikou, it has to be able to, you would think it would have to be able to outpace a +2 Cloyster, but he doesn't know if I'm going to run Adamant and stuff like that, and if I were Adamant max speed, then I believe a Rash Scarfed Raikou would outpace me. So there's a lot of mind games going on with that little segment there, but we'll see if that comes into play in the battle, I guess. But just overall, this is very good against him. Surf for the Mega Diancie and the Rhyperior, because its physical defense is so high, it's nice to have a +2 Surf coming at it instead of an Icicle Spear. And yeah, I believe that's about all there is to say on that. We're just going to try to set this up against maybe the Zygarde, maybe the Chestnut, perhaps. I believe I can take any hit from Chestnut because it's relatively weak. And I can also set up on a Sneasel that doesn't have a Life Orb, as Low Kick doesn't do that much to me. It can set up against a Psyshock Cresselia if it doesn't have like Psychic or Moonblast or something like that to take me out, as my special defense is very, very low with Cloyster. Really, I see several opportunities for Cloyster to potentially set up this game, so that's kind of the plan with that. So that's kind of the team, and definitely looking forward to this match, as I said before, as Aberforth is a very worthy opponent, and it's going to be a good match. Okay, so looking at team preview, he brought, well, he didn't bring the Starmie, which I thought was very interesting, because Starmie really is his best Rapid Spinner against my team. It forces out a lot of things, and it just has great coverage for my team in general, despite the fact that it really can't OHKO too much, and I guess that's probably his thought process behind not bringing it. but it looks like his only form of hazard removal is going to be the Mega Diancie, and that's not hazard removal, that's a hazard deterrent, and I don't really see Mega Diancie being able to switch in easily against really anything on my team, as it takes a chunk from uninvested Sylveon. I believe it takes like 70% or 60% from Hyper Voice after it Mega Evolves. Obviously, it doesn't want to take a Surf from Empoleon, a Giga Drain from Mega Venusaur, an Earthquake from my Piloswine, or a Hydro Pump for my Salamence, so Mega Diancie's not going to be switching in and deterring hazards anytime soon. So I think Rocks are going to be able to get up this game at some point, and they should be there to stay. So that's the general thought process on the hazard game. But in terms of win conditions, he's got Darm and Caress. So Darm and Caress are both pretty big threats to my team, and I'm going to have to keep Mince very healthy to deal with Darm for sure, and I need to try to keep all of my Crest checks alive and able to do their job, and I just have to essentially pray that it's not a Rest Talk Crest, as if it's a Rest Talk Crest, my Empoleon cannot beat it, and I'll have to basically roar it out and flinch it down with Cloyster. That's the only way I beat Rest Talk Crest. So maybe that's an oversight in my building, I'm not really sure, maybe there's other ways to beat it, but from what I was seeing, this is my best option, and we're just going to go ahead and dive on in and see if I can pull this off. But in terms of the lead matchup, I don't really know what he wants to lead with, but my best lead is probably Sylveon because it beats his entire team outside of the Darm. If he leads Darm, it's most likely choiced in some way, so I can protect up to scout it or go straight into Mince and get a little bit of early momentum that way with firing off a Hydro Pump or a Draco Meteor, something like that. Just in general, I think Sylveon's probably my best option against him as a lead. So that is exactly what I'm going to do, and it turns out that Palmman's issuing the challenge, and he's actually going to lead with his Darm, so that's fine. I am just going to go ahead and swap straight into my Mince. I really don't have a reason to leave my Sylveon in this early and try to scout out a move just in case he has something like Sub. I want to make sure I can get off and Intimidate on the Darm, and if he has Sub and Sub's down on my Protect, that'd be really bad. So I am just going to go ahead and go straight into my Mince and get off that Intimidate as he goes straight for the Rock Slide. So good play on his end for sure, and this play tells me he means business this game, and he's definitely going to try to be in my head early and often, and that's something that I'm going to have to keep in the back of my mind whenever I'm making my plays, as Palm is very good. Aberforth is very good, and he's going to be making a lot of plays like that throughout the game, I'm sure. Now here, I'm just going to go straight for the Roost, knowing that because of that damage, he's definitely not Choice Scarfed, and I can eat up whatever he wants to go for. He goes for another Rock Slide, which tells me he's probably Choice Banded. The damage output was definitely right along the middle of being Choice Banded and Life Orb. I still think he's Choice Banded at this point, just because it did so much, and that damage roll also was right on par with a Choice Banded Rock Slide, so I'm going to assume he's Choice Banded as he switches out now, and he goes straight into his Diancie, as I actually predict that, and go for the Hydro Pump. Now Hydro Pump also was a safe play if he left the Darm in, so regardless, it was a nice middle ground play for me. I guess I could have gone for Draco, but there's really no point because I didn't think he would stay in. He has no reason to stay in. His most likely switch-ins are Cress or Diancie. Hydro Pump's just a better play, and I managed to do about 50% to that, but that damage tells me he's probably a naive Diancie, so he's probably most definitely carrying Diamond Storm on that, so that's also pretty good information to have as well. But here I'm going to go straight into my Empoleon, expecting him to go for Protect, because I do outpace, if I outpace the Darm, I definitely outpace the Diancie before he Mega Evolves, but he makes a very risky play. He goes straight for the Rocks. This is a play I kind of disagree with, because this was his only Stealth Rocker. It's also very frail, and Rocks are very important against my team, clearly, if he wants for Darm to be able to wear down the Mince. Props to him, he got the prediction correct, but I thought that was very, very risky, but he means business this game, clearly. He's making the predictions early, and as you can see here, I predict him to switch into his Crest or something else to not die to Surf, and he just stays in and goes for Earth Power, so I don't know, this man's in my head early in the game, and it's not good. I disagree with that play too, though. I felt like he should have kept Diancie around because it would help him break down the Sylveon, but then in hindsight, I guess that also, he doesn't really need break down Sylveon as much because he doesn't have Starmie to capitalize on it, broken down Sylveon, but I'm just going to stay in again and hit him up with a Surf and take out the Mega Diancie. Perhaps I could have gone into Sylveon there instead and preserved my Empoleon so it could better handle Cresselia later on. Potentially a misplay on my part, but I didn't make that play. Now we're going to have to deal with it. So he is going to switch into his Raikou, which is fine. Here, because he's shiny, I'm expecting him to be an R-Sphere variant and Rash Nature, and therefore go for the R-Sphere here just in case I want to go into my Piloswine. That makes a lot of sense to me, so I'm going to go straight into my Sylveon, expecting the R-Sphere. and it turns out that he just goes straight for the Volt Switch instead. So good on him. Seems like just a very good prediction on his part. So he is going to gain a little bit of momentum here against my Sylveon as he goes for that Volt Switch and does what appears to be Choice Scarf damage. I could not quite tell if it was a plus special attack nature or a plus speed nature. That is key in this matchup. I cannot tell exactly what that Raikou is. I can't tell if it's Rash nature or Timid. If it's Rash, it has Aura Sphere. If it's Timid, it does not, just due to how the events worked. But he makes a switch into his Crest, probably thinking he can just go for game immediately, or at least get up a Calm Mind and do a little bit of damage that way, but I'm not having any of that. I'm going to go straight into my Piloswine, as I can either roar this out or set up my Stealth Rocks against it, depending on what variant it is. It could just be a T-Way variant and wanted to neuter my Sylveon that way, but he just goes straight for the Calm Mind. So that's okay at this point. Piloswine's at very high health. Unfortunately, Empoleon is not, but I still have Roar on this. I can at least keep my footing against this Crest until I can get my Cloyster set up later on, or even flinch it down with Icicle Spear later on, as I do have the King's Rock. But he just goes for another Calm Mind here, I guess, testing the waters. There's really no reason for him to go for Psyshock here. He could have, it would have done negligible damage to my Piloswine anyways, and I'm just going to roar it out here and just see what I can get, as he is roared into his Zygarde, which, that's okay. The worst he can do is Iron Tail me, I believe, and even so, I'm a nearly full Fizz-Def Piloswine. It's not going to do very much to me at all, and I'm just going to go straight for the Ice Shard just in case he wants to set up, or go for a Dragon Dance or something. I want to make sure that it's weakened, at least to the point where I can beat it with a Mega Venusaur. One of the following turns, but he decides to actually go for a sub that turn, I guess expecting my switch potentially into the Mega Venusaur. Not really sure, because I could have easily gone into a Fizz-Def Sylveon as well, as I believe the Volt Switch damage was relatively high. That's why I couldn't really tell if it was a Rash Raikou or a Timid one, so he definitely could have thought I was a Fizz-Def Venusaur there, so I'm not really sure on the sub play there, but I'm just going to roar him out here. There's no sense in going for another Ice Shard. I'd rather just get him out of there and make him lose that damage from the sub without being able to really capitalize much outside of one Iron Tail. Now here, the Dharma's in. I have to sack my Empoleon because rocks are up. I cannot guarantee that my Mints will be able to take a Rock Slide, as with a crit with Rocks up, I definitely would go down, and if I lose my Mints, I lose to this Dharm, so I can't make that risk, unfortunately, and down goes my Empoleon, which is one less check, I guess, to the Crest, but even so, at that amount of health, it really wasn't that great of a check to it anyways at this point. So now I'm going to go straight into my Mints, as now I outspeed guaranteed, so there's no way he's going to be able to take me out at this point if I go for a Roost. But I believe what I'm actually going to do is predict his switch and go for the Defog here, as Mega Diancy's down, and I can get rid of the rocks essentially for free at this point as he goes into his Crest, which is a nice play on his part. This is where I kind of wish I had Toxic on this, just because I actually opted for Defog over Toxic and had Rapid Spin on Cloyster in the original, an earlier draft of this team, but I ended up going with Defog here instead, and I don't get a Toxic on the Crest for that reason, but the Defog is also pretty nice because now rocks are off my field, off my side of the field for good, as now I'm going to go straight, I believe, into my Piloswine, my Sticks, and he is going to go straight for the Side Shock, which is a good play on his part. He probably was expecting me to go into this and didn't want to just get up a +1 and get roared out again like last time, and now he goes straight for the Calm Mind again, as this, I'm just going to go for Rocks on this turn because they're going to be there to stay. He doesn't have his Diancie anymore to deter them, so Rocks are going up right now, and I guess he predicted that, and that's why he went for the Calm Mind on that turn, so good on him. Definitely a nice play on his part, but now I'm essentially just forced to roar. I mean, I can't let this thing get higher than +1. I really don't want this thing to have any boost at all, because that's when it becomes a threat, but I'm just going to go for the roar now. With Rocks up, maybe I can get the Dharm in, get a free 25% on that. That'd be nice. Or if he is roared to Raikou, I can scout if he has Aura Sphere, because at this range I should die to anything but, I should die to Aura Sphere. I have very little spit up investment, and if he has Aura Sphere, he should reveal here. And I am going to go ahead and swap into my Sylveon on this turn to scout for it. He actually pulls a double, though, into his Zygarde, which I thought was an interesting play. I could have very easily just gone for an Earthquake on that turn, but I don't know. I pulled a double here into my Sylveon. And Sylveon has a decent matchup against this, I believe, and I might as well just go ahead and attack this. I can definitely eat up an Iron Tail from this. It's really not that strong, especially when it's already revealed to, I believe it's already revealed to not have Life Orb. In fact, it has leftover, so it definitely is not Life Orb. Therefore, Sylveon can take any hit from this with relative ease. And with Mega Diancie gone, Starmie not brought, I really don't need Sylveon at that high of health to be effective this game outside of using Heal Bell and potentially Wish Passing to teammates. That's something I could have kept in mind, I guess, during this battle, but I eat up that Iron Tail easily. And I'm just going to take out the Zygarde with the Sylveon. So now that this is gone, Mega Venusaur becomes a little bit less useful this game outside of maybe switching in against the Chestnut, as I can wear down the Chestnut decently well with Venusaur unless he has something like Synthesis, which is quite possible, but even so, I think it's okay to let Sylveon get weakened here, and Mega Venusaur still has some utility, I guess, later on. Now here he goes into his Darm, and I'm convinced he's banded at this point, so I'm just going to go ahead and click Protect. And as you can see, he goes for, I believe, the Flare Blitz. He goes for the Rock Slide, rather, which scares me from going into my Ments. I don't want to go into Ments and take a Rock Slide. Even if rocks aren't on the field, if he gets a crit at this point, I do die. And that's not something I can really handle. So I'm going to switch it to my Venusaur. And Fizdap, I should be able to take Banded Rock Slide very easily. It should do probably like 30%. And he goes for the Flare Blitz. So he's Life Orb. It's a little bit unfortunate that the damage rolls are so similar between Life Orb and Choice Band, but it is what it is. He gets my Venusaur there. Nice play on his end. He definitely got me with that item selection, but fortunately for me, Mega Venusaur wasn't super necessary at this point in the game, especially considering the Mega Diancie was down, Zygarde was down. He really didn't have that much of a purpose outside of wearing down the Chestnut a little bit, so not a huge deal. It may be a Leech Seed on the crest, but here I'm just going to check this Darmanitan with my Mints, and I'm going to go straight for the Draco Meteor as he's staying in. There's no way he's going to switch out whenever he's going to take another 25% from rocks, and quite honestly, he has a very hard time scaring much else out on my team, so especially after rocks damage is nearly an Ice Shard range from Piloswine as well, so really he has no reason to keep this thing around. He has very little reason to keep this thing around. I'm just going to take it out with the Draco. Now here he goes into his Chestnut. Now because he brought it in on a free switch like this, I'm thinking it's a Belly Drum Salad Berry set, so my best play is to go straight into Cloyster just in case he does set up a Belly Drum. And he actually makes a very nice play and goes for the Body Slam instead. So he bluffed that. I don't know if that was an intentional bluff, but he bluffed it pretty well if it was. And he got my Cloyster and he paralyzed it, so that's pretty bad as well. But fortunately I do have the Heal Bell on Sylveon, and Chestnut's pretty darn slow if it's running full defense, so I should be able to outspeed the Chestnut with my Sylveon and get off a Heal Bell. So that's exactly what I'm going to try to do soon, but first I'm going to go into my Mints to drop its attack, just in case it does have a pretty powerful attacking option. I need to lower its attack as much as possible so that Sylveon can survive a hit, just in case it does have some speed investment. I think that's overall the best play here, and he just sets up a layer of spikes, so that's not great either. I do have Defog on this, though, so I could just Defog those away. The only issue with that is that my Rocks then would not be on the field, and I'd like to keep my Rocks up to deal damage to the likes of his Raikou and his Crest and just everything as it switches in. I think overall it's just nice to have my Rocks up, but in hindsight, maybe it would have been better to get rid of the spikes at this point. I'm not really sure, but I do get my Sylveon in, and he goes for Body Slam again. So I'm thinking Body Slam is his only attacking option because he probably would have gone for something else on that turn. I guess Body Slam is okay. It doesn't really confirm anything at this point, honestly. But at this point, he definitely should go for something other than Body Slam if he has it. So I'm going to scout for it by going for Protect, as he just goes for another Body Slam, I believe. So given the damage of the previous Body Slam, I should definitely be able to survive this next one. From the range of health I'm at after leftovers, he needs a crit to be able to take me out, and it turns out I do outspeed him, so he is almost definitely full Fizdef, which is fine. I am able to get off the Heal Bell, which makes my Cloyster decent again. It makes it usable again in the matchup, as Cloyster is certainly the win con. I need to set up the win con at some point, and it's probably going to be on this Chestnut, so considering what he has left. I only know Crest has Psyshock, so I guess theoretically I could try to set up on the Cresselia as well, but it's not really confirmed as to whether or not he has a special attacking move that isn't Psyshock, you know, as anything else would probably be able to OHKO my Cloyster after I hit a Shell Smash as my special defenses dropped, so just something to keep in mind. But I think Chestnut is going to be what I have to set up on this game, which is very risky considering he does have Body Slam as his attacking option, which has that paralysis chance, and if Cloyster gets paralyzed, then I have no way to beat the Cresselia at this point. But here, he's going to set up some spikes as I go for the Wish. I think he should have taken me out on that turn just in case I went for the Wish, because this lets me get a lot more health back on my Piloswine, which helps me beat the potential R-Sphere Raikou. That was my thought process here, as if I can get some health back on Piloswine, that definitely makes my job easier against the Raikou overall. And that's kind of the plan here. This game in its own is pretty long, you know. I'm sure you've already been able to notice at this point, but the team I brought is very, very fast, so it just takes a long time for it to do its job throughout the match. It's not a quick acting team by any means, but as you can see here, I do pass the wish to my Piloswine. Only way he takes me out is with a crit, and even so, I'm not sure if a crit would kill. Let's see how much this does. It did 16, so a crit would not have, well, let's see, I think it's at -1, so a crit might have taken me out, but regardless, I get a ton of health back there from the wish, so that's pretty nice. I can easily eat up even a Specs or a Sphere at this point from the Raikou, so that's pretty good news. Now here, he goes for the Spiky Shield, which is a good play, because at this point he was in range of the Ice Shard, potentially, at least a crit Ice Shard would kill from this range, but the Spiky Shield gets him outside of that range, as I do have 0 attack investment on this, so I do not hit very hard at all, especially against something that's as physically defensive as this, but essentially, yeah, these plays are just kind of looking for my opportunity to get into my Cloyster for free. I'm not going to switch in recklessly on a Body Slam, that's just very bad, but eventually the goal is to get Cloyster in against this and then click Shell Smash. That's my win condition I have to set up on this Chestnut, and in doing so I need to make sure I don't kill the Chestnut with any of my mons, but it also needs to definitely be in range of my Icicle Spear as well. So it's I guess a +2 is always going to be in range of my Icicle Spear, but I would like to have in range of Icicle Spear without a Shell Smash, because depending on the conditions of the battle, I might not want to click Shell Smash, etc. Most likely I'm clicking Shell Smash, but it is what it is. So here I'm going to go into my Mints, just to get another Intimidate on this, because I potentially am going to go for 2. I haven't decided at this point if I'm going to go for 2 Shell Smashes against the Chestnut, as 2 Shell Smashes ensure that I outspeed a Scarf Raikou that is timid, 1 Shell Smash ensures that I outspeed a Scarf Raikou that is rash. That's my thought process, and that's what I'm going to set up. It just takes several turns to get to that position because I'm so cautious about getting my Cloyster in. But here I'm just going to go ahead and sack off the Sylveon to the spikes, and I'm going to go for game right here. So I'm going to go into Cloyster. And this thought process is still going on in the back of my head. Do I go for 2 Shell Smashes? Do I go for 1? I have to avoid being paralyzed twice if I go for 2. I have to avoid being paralyzed once if I go for 1. The benefit is that if I get 2, I can win guaranteed. The benefit to only Shell Smashing once is that I think I win anyways, because he is a shiny Choice Scarf Raikou, and Shiny Raikou is almost always an Aura-Sphere variant. He hasn't brought Shiny Raikou any time in the past. It makes sense to bring Aura-Sphere against my team, so I'm only going to go for 1 Shell Smash and hope that I don't get parried on the first one. And as you can see, I don't get parried. So here we go. Now the question is, do I go for Icicle Spear, or do I go for another Shell Smash? I opted to go for the Icicle Spear on this turn. I think he's Scarf Raikou, but I think he's Rash Nature. Because why wouldn't you run Aura Sphere on Raikou for a Piloswine matchup? That's my thought process. Let's see if it works out. Because the game comes down to this play that just happened. If he is Rash Raikou, I win. If he is Timid Raikou, he wins. And I did not feel that it was necessary to risk the fact that he would paralyze me with Body Slam. I know my luck, I'm not going to test it, I'm going to play to the odds that I think exist in this game. I think it's a Shiny Raikou with Aura Sphere Rash Nature. It is timid. So we are going to lose our Cloyster here, and that was really our last chance to beat the Crest, as the only option we really have now is to spam Roar with Piloswine. And that's not going to wear down the Cresselia, quite simply. It's just not going to do it, but I was determined. I was still going to click Roar every single turn. It's my only way to win. I had to hope he choked over and over again by trying to switch into things and, you know, just get worn down by rocks. That was the only way I could have won at this point. I probably should have just gone for the KO on Raikou while I had the chance, as it would have made it a 1-0 instead of a 2-0. Man. So I'm just going to spoil it now. There's still a few turns left in the battle, but we are going to end up losing this game. And it all comes down to that play with Cloyster. I could have gone for 2 Shell Smashes, but I thought he was a Rash Choice Scarf Raikou with Aura Sphere because he was shiny. And I talked to him after the battle, and he said that he planned that on purpose. So props to you, Aberforth. Props to you. That was very, very, very good prep on your part, and I can't even be mad about that, because I thought I played well at most of the game. He played well as well. So this is one of those games that I'm not salty about at all. I think we both played well. I don't think I got outplayed. I don't think I outplayed him. I think he outprepped me in that instance by tricking me with being a shiny Raikou into thinking that he was an R-Sphere Rash variant. And therefore my Cloyster theoretically would outspeed him, but it actually did not after a Shell Smash. So it comes down to, if I'd gone for a second Shell Smash and didn't get paralyzed by the Body Slam, then I would have pulled out the game. But unfortunately for me, I guessed wrong, essentially, and his trick worked. So that's pretty cool. But I'm not mad about this at all. It's really nice, because this is what I envisioned whenever I took over as commissioner of the National Pokeball League. Is I wanted this league to be as competitive as possible, and these are the kind of games that I really enjoy. These are the kind of games that make me want to come back and play more, because this was down to the wire, down to one play, essentially hacksless, and against two very competent players, in my opinion. So it was a very, very fun match to be a part of. And honestly, I'm not mad, which is nice, because usually I'm salty after losing, quite honestly. Usually I'm salty, but I'm not at all this time. And big props to Aberforth for pulling off the win here, as now this Cresselia is essentially just going to click a couple Calm Minds and then just spam Side Shock. I had no intentions of roosting at this point. He could have just clicked Side Shock repeatedly if he wanted to. Maybe this speeds up the process, but if I got like 2 or 3 Jerko Meteor crits in a row, maybe I could have somehow dodged and hit Power Ice from Raikou. Then I might have been able to pull off the game at that point. No, I couldn't have pulled off the game at this point, but unfortunately the remaining segment of this game is a little bit longer than it should be, and that's just because that's the nature of Cresselia. Despite the fact that the game's essentially decided at this point, I'm not allowed to run in the middle of an NPL match, so I do have to essentially sit here and wait for my Salamence to die. There's not a whole lot I can really do about that, but that's basically what's going to happen here. So I'm just going to go ahead and give my post-game talk, because this is as good as over at this point. So we do lose this game, and it is our second loss in a row in the NPL, which is a little bit unfortunate. I haven't done that since, I guess, Season 3? Yes, I haven't done that since Season 3, when I lost to, I believe, Cheese and Michael back-to-back. And whenever I had the division from hell, that was bad. My matchups were terrible that season. But yeah, we lost twice in a row in the NPL, and that hasn't happened. That's only happened twice in my career at this point in this league. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but last week's loss, I'm gonna kind of slide aside as a bit of a fluke because of the air balloon shenanigan. This was a good match. This was a good match. I don't think I could have played much better. I don't think Palm could have played much better. He made some aggressive plays that I somewhat disagreed with, but they did work out, so I can't really be too, I can't really criticize him too much for those. And it is what it is. So we do lose this week. We now have 2-2 record. This was a 2-0 game, so I believe my differential is now +3. So we're still positive differential. We're a little over the middle of the pack of the league, I guess. There's several teams that have 2 wins after this week, so it's not a huge deal. We're right in the middle. That's okay. The goal is just to make the playoffs at this point, and my division is very good, so it's not going to be guaranteed by any means. In fact, my whole conference is very good. There's several coaches in that conference that have a good chance of making the playoffs, and I guess we'll just kind of see if we can pull it off. I'm definitely going to try my hardest. I think I'm good enough of a player, good enough at the format to pull that off, but with the level of competition in the National Pokeball League this season, nothing's guaranteed. Not even close. So we're just going to take it week by week and see what happens, and hopefully I can end up where I want to be at the end of the season, and if not, hey, it's a learning experience. But I will say, after this week, there's a good chance that I'm going to have a very different looking roster, and if that's the case, I'll be sure to introduce that a little bit at the beginning of the video. But there's a pretty large trade that I'm strongly considering with Aberforth, actually, for a handful of his Pokemon, and we'll just kind of see what happens. But I do think my team needs a little bit of work, as I don't think I should be losing multiple games in a row, despite the level of competition in the league, as I think I'm better than that. So I think my team is part of the issue here, and I'm going to try to patch some holes and make it a little bit more of a championship contender team. So we're just going to see if I can pull off those trades this week, and I'll get back to you on that. But thanks for watching, guys. We will try to avenge this loss next week. I believe we have New York. We have a Razor, or whoever might be replacing him. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to get to play Razor himself, but it's Razor's team that I'm playing. He's actually going out of town here next week, so we'll see what happens on that. But we'll pull it off. We'll get back on the winning track next week. I'm confident in that. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all then. Have a good one. Peace.